I was lucky enough to get my Nintendo Switch and Breath of the Wild on its release weekend, and I think it's important to stress that I've played the game for several hours, nearly every day since then. I've poured so much into this game so far, and I'm nowhere near completing it yet. I've been having too much fun exploring and getting distracted from my objectives. The Great Plateau is the first area accessible in Breath of the Wild, and probably one of the most important, since it lays out the groundwork for the rest of the game. It teaches you nearly every important mechanic of the game before setting you loose in the world, and it does it incredibly gracefully. So since I had decided that I was going to take my sweet time with this game, it shouldn't be surprising that I spent a long while playing around the Great Plateau before getting out the paraglider and leaving for the rest of Hyrule. So what did I do during all those hours, and why are these details important for setting Link up for the rest of the game? I think the first time you hear Zelda's voice in Breath of the Wild is really impactful. We've seen footage of the game's intro online for over half a year, but something about really just sitting in front of the TV and hearing it for yourself is really something else.
Open your eyes. Open your eyes. Wake up, Link.
The Shrine of Resurrection is also an important area to start in, not only for the story, but to immerse Link deeply into the Sheikah technology and architecture that Link will be spending a lot of time with, not to mention the raw, mysterious atmosphere of this place. Once we have the Sheikah slate and some old clothes and get out of the shrine, we get this iconic shot of Hyrule, and I think this is a really important moment, as not only that classic 80s artwork callback, but to really show us the massive scope of this game. Even though we're restricted to the plateau for now, we still have a pretty good sense of what we're in for this time around. So this is where the subtle tutorial begins when it comes to exploring the world of Hyrule. As soon as we start moving down the path, we see a sparkle and the prompt to pick something up. Right away, we're collecting weapons. Yeah, that tree branch counts. And gathering ingredients. That's that mushroom there. This basic mechanic of collecting things is the most important part of Breath of the Wild. Since weapons are basically consumable items that break with use, exploring and finding them is extremely important to surviving in Hyrule, and since we won't be finding hearts just lying around, food and ingredients as well are important. But more importantly, the developers made sure that because these weapons and ingredients are consumable, exploring and finding these things is very rewarding, even up to the end game. Now, in The Wind Waker, for example, I loved as a kid that I could pick up an enemy's weapon and use it against them. It was a fun twist unseen in Zelda until then. However, it was more like a temporary pickup. We couldn't keep the weapon and bring it into other areas, and so as much fun as it wasn't exactly an important mechanic to the game. But now in Breath of the Wild, we don't have a permanent sword fixed into our inventory as soon as we get out on our adventure. So when a good weapon breaks, it aches. However, it means the game can keep rewarding us with disposable weapons, and it feels rewarding all the way through the game. So back to the plateau. After picking some apples, talking to the old man about exposition, and baking an apple, I was headed off on my adventure. But the first thing I wanted to check out was the Temple of Time, because this game really knows how to tug on my nostalgia strings. However, on my way, I needed to grab myself that sweet looking axe that was just, sitting there. Oh, and pick some more apples. And more apples. I like picking apples. And then I noticed a sword just sitting there all important looking on a small island, so I decided I had to go grab it for myself since I was collecting stuff. Here's where I stumbled across my first Korok. Ironically, looking back, I actually knew about him being there from previous E3 demos and footage, but I was so wrapped up in looking around for things that I totally just stumbled into him by accident. So I climbed up and grabbed the rusty sword and then immediately died for the first time. Yeah, I drowned like an idiot. I just hopped in the water without letting my stamina gauge refill and just... So then I was back up on my way to explore the ruined Temple of Time when this ruined building caught my eye and totally distracted me. It needed investigation because if video games have taught me anything, it's that there's almost certainly something good to find in there. Yeah, it was food. I shortly after encountered my first enemy and whooped his... and I took his weapon. I found another bokoblin close by in another ruined building, and the game's tips encouraged me to use the game's sneaking mechanic to try and take care of him. He totally noticed me before I got close enough to him to take him out, so I used the now tried and trusted method that worked so well before. Oh, and look, he was hanging out with a treasure chest. What sort of useful item will I find inside? It's pants. Actually, these trousers are basically the game's first armor upgrade, offering better protection than those well-worn trousers we found in the shrine before. In fact, I'm still wearing those pants in my current playthrough a month later. You get to upgrade them though. So distractions aside, I made my way up the path over to finally check out what was in the ruined Temple of Time. But first, I had to deal with another bokoblin. Don't worry, I had this all figured out. So what was inside? Well, a few arrows and some miscellaneous treasure, and my first bow. Growing up, I never really used a bow in Zelda games for combat unless it was necessary. Until the last few years, when I was playing Twilight Princess HD, I actually discovered that in that game, the bow was extremely useful in combat. Given Breath of the Wild's great focus on using the bow, I was excited to find one and start using it. After taking a good look at the goddess statue here, I started to walk back towards the entrance when I noticed what looked like a small alcove or balcony up near the top of the room. I decided to climb up and take a look, since if Zelda has taught me anything, it's that there's probably something good up there. There wasn't, but it got me thinking to try and be more aware of the verticality of this game's design, so I decided to keep climbing around to see what I could find. And then I accidentally fell down and died again. So after being persistent and climbing up to the roof and up the tower, I found an even better bow. See how this game is already rewarding the player curiosity? If I had just gone straight to the Temple of Time, I would not have found any of the food or the pants that I found earlier, and had I just taken my leave and headed straight to my objective, I would have missed out on the most powerful bow found on the plateau. Just looking around, you'll find stuff, but pressing on and reaching farther, you'll find the good stuff. So after poking around there, I decided to actually go ahead and follow my supposed objective and follow the point on my map. Had to deal with some more bokoblins though. Suckers. And here's where I encountered my first instance of needing to deal with inventory management. I couldn't carry any more weapons and I was forced to discard something if I wanted to pick up something else. So I threw that stick away. The next enemy I fought had a decent looking sword, and since I wanted to pick it up, I had to get rid of something. So I figured I'd take that Boko club and... oh, whoops. I'd take that Boko club and break it over this guy's head. Then go grab that sword. So after kicking these guys' butts, I finally made it over to my objective. A solid 30 minutes of distractions before walking a single kilometer to my objective. And that's what the whole game is all about to me. I have my objectives and I see how to get there, but the path over to it is abundant with things to collect, and enemies to fight, and interesting locales to poke around in. There is no way more fun for me to play than to be given so much to do and see that I totally get distracted from my objective. It's fully the reason why I rarely fast travel in this game. I want to be pulled off the road frequently and find tons of discoveries. Exploring the world is what made Zelda so special over 30 years ago, and it's what makes Breath of the Wild so special again today.